What's my horse's handicap? The fact that you're backing him?
Everyone loves a newbie. That's why Paddy Power Games are giving all new customers 60 free spins on daily jackpot games. New Paddy Power Games customers only. One per customer. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Hello and welcome to this Bank Holiday Monday Postcast. I'm Maddie Plell, joined in the studio by Nick Watts and James Hill. And Binners is on the line from Paddy Power as well, Paul Binfield. Now, gosh, we have a lot to cover, don't we? We have Punchestown, but first let's talk about Newmarket and the 2,000 and 1,000 guineas. Magna Grecia first off, winning the Colts Classic. What do we make of the race, lads? Because they split into two groups, three on the one side. I think all three finished in the top six. They also finished first and second on that side. Magna Grecia, would he have won from any position? Jimmy, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was the best horse in the race. I think it was about over four lengths back to the third horse. So yes, there was definitely a bias. I think maybe the second horse was a bit lucky to finish runner-up in the end, but Magna Grecia beat him comfortably. And I think it would be a tough call to say that he wouldn't have won from any other position on the track. Really.
I agree with that. Interesting that he's not by a Coolmore sire. His dam's out of Galileo, but he's by Invincible Spirit. So it seems that they're going to stick to the mile division for now. Do you think he could do the double in the Irish 2,000 guineas?
No reason why not. Yeah, I mean he looks an exciting prospect. He's rock solid. You know, I mean, all his form. He was second to Persian King at Newmarket last season, then going on to win a Group 1 at Doncaster in the Vertem Futurity. Now it's a progressive profile. It's a very solid profile. He looks a tough horse. He's got a proper turn of foot. He's the one they've all got to beat at the moment in the miling division. Yeah,
he is for sure. Is he a superstar though?
It's a hard one to answer at the moment, really. He does look pretty good. Yeah, I mean, maybe he didn't have that wow factor as a 2-year-old, but he's a good, solid pro, and as James said, won the Futurity and showed good qualities that day. And you know, with Aidan O'Brien's horses, they're always going to progress and go on. And you know, he kind of gets them ready for the Guineas, but it's not the be all and end all because for his team, because they've got long seasons ahead of them. So you'd expect some improvement to come. Yeah, I hope he goes to Ireland. I'd like to see Mad Moon take him on again.
I think they were speaking about going up in trip with him, weren't they?
I just think it'd be interesting if you know, there's people out there, and there will be, who did think Magna Grecia benefited from where he was on the track, and Mad Moon was on the other side. It would be interesting to see them race again, you know, maybe in an Irish Guineas where potential draw issues aren't a factor, and just see them race again against each other. But I agree with James. I thought he was a really good winner. He won comfortably. I think he would have done it from any part of the track. And you know, it's a shame when, you know, if I'm not sure it was a track bias, particularly more of a pace bias. And it's a shame when races split into groups, but when you get a straight field contest over a mile with the amount of runners they got there, it's always going to happen. We see it happening in big Ascot handicaps all the time, and you know, unfortunately some horses will be on the right side of it or on the right side of the pace and other horses won't, and it's just the way it goes. It's one of those things, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a bit of a, well, maybe it's a tough question, maybe it's not out there, but very much a talking point at the minute is big races being run round a bend and that being a better spectacle than races run on a straight course. And people are saying that a lot of the races run on straight courses could perhaps be moved around a bend in this country. We'll get on to the Kentucky Derby and that whole fiasco just in a bit. But what do you think? Would you prefer it if a few more races were run around a bend in this country?
Well, there's not many bends at Newmarket. That's the problem, isn't there? And that's the home of the Guineas. It's not going to, you know, I don't see
Newmarket, them. But putting Newmarket aside.
Ascot's the talking point, isn't it? Whether you put some races down on the round course or down the straight track. I think it's more tactical, it's more interesting with a bend, definitely. I think, you know, in terms of jockeyship and stuff, it's more of a test, you know, how fast do you go and so on. Straight track, I mean, I always like to go for jockeys who are on hold-up horses, who are very good at coming from behind, because you just get a much fairer, stronger run race on a straight track. So it's better from a punting perspective.
Okay. Well, talking of courses round bends, we're going to be talking about Chester, of course, coming up this week, just a little bit later on. But Binners, let's get some prices on the 2,000 Guineas Magna Grecia before we move on to the Fillies version. What price is he for the Irish 2,000 and indeed the Derby? I don't think he's entered, is he?
No, he's not entered in the Derby, Maddie. We did put him in the Derby immediately after the race, but then it does look like he's going to the Curragh for the Irish 2,000 Guineas. We went 6-4 from 3-1 Magna Grecia immediately after the race. That 6-4 has proved far too big, and he's now a 4-7 chance for the race. But then we've got Too Darn Hot at 5-1, Mad Moon at 6, Never No More at 8, and it's the 1 bar.
Yeah, we definitely need to see Too Darn Hot, don't we? I think he might be going to the Dante next, didn't they say? So be good to see him back. Moving on to the Fillies version, Hermosa made all, much like Homecoming Queen did a couple of years ago, although the eventual finishing distance wasn't quite that far. Was it a result you expected, Jimmy?
Oh, well, I backed her, so...
Bravo!
I was hopeful that she would run very well, but I wasn't confident that she would win by any means.
The money came, didn't it?
Money did come for her, so that gave me hope. Yeah, Galileo Fillies have a very good record in that race for Aidan O'Brien. That's what caught my eye. I wasn't that impressed with the race, to be honest with you. I haven't been impressed with those fillies for quite a few months now. This race was no different. I think there was 3 lengths between the first 8 home. That's not great form. I know 1 or 2 people have said the time compares well with the 2,000 Guineas. I wouldn't get sucked into taking that too literally. There was a tailwind on Sunday, so that would have definitely helped them go a bit quicker time-wise. I'm not sure really how good a race that was personally. I was much more impressed with the Pretty Polly winner, Max, who I'm sure we'll get onto in a bit.
Yeah, we will for sure. What do you make of the 1,000 Guineas Hermosa? And then you had a lot of Aidan O'Brien's fillies in behind as well.
Well, I think she's a horse that will stay further, definitely. And I think
pedigree, she certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. So when she got to the front and when she was still in there pitching like a furlong out, you knew that she wasn't going to be stopping, and the others were going to find it hard to get to her. And there's probably a few in there who, may do better over shorter in time as well. So it's kind of a bit of a contrast there, and she finished off her race really well. There was a bit of money for her beforehand, suggesting a good run was imminent. It just goes to show time and again, it's like Willie Mullins over jumps. If Aidan runs 3 or 4, it doesn't mean to say that the 3rd or 4th string can't win, because they often do. They're so good, they're so well bred that any one of them can take a leap forward at any time, and it was Hermosa this time, and she did it very nicely. Agree with James, overall, would the form be worth a lot? Possibly not, but that's not to say that she won't turn out to be a brilliant 3-year-old, and one that would do better, I think, over further.
Were you enamoured by any of the runners in behind? I know a lot of people thought Just Wonderful ran quite an eye-catching race, and Kabbalah, she ran well. She was under pressure from a long way out. Yeah,
I thought Kabbalah, there's something to take from her performance, definitely. I think she just got stuck in behind Fairyland at a crucial stage, which just held her up a little bit. So I think Connections would be delighted with her. But there was more kind of disappointments than horses who excelled for me. Iridessa was quite disappointing, I thought. I thought she, going into the race, she was a similar type to Hermosa in that she'll stay further. So
she beat her in the Fillies Mile.
Yeah, so I expected her to be up there and to be staying on well close home, but she couldn't. She didn't really do an awful lot for me. Dandu was disappointing. Star Terms, who a few people fancied each way, was disappointing, never got into the race at all. So it was more kind of that kind of race for me than horses, to put in a tracker maybe for the future.
Yeah, and what did you make of the Pretty Polly? Did you like the winner for the Oaks?
Yeah, I really liked her. I mean, there's always 2 ways of looking at these things, and you look back and you think, well, maybe it wasn't the greatest race in the world, but when you see a horse coming there swinging like she did, she's obviously on very good terms with herself. She found plenty to win comfortably. She probably ought to get further, I would think, if you look at the breeding. I think she certainly will. There's still Oaks fillies that we've got to see. We've got the trial season coming up, so I'm sure there'll be, we'll know more in a few weeks' time. But she's certainly made an early claim. Yeah,
it does look sort of an open Oaks this year. I know it's still very early days. Binners, just run us through those prices.
Well, Maddie, Pink Dogwood heads the market at 4-1. Hermosa 6-1. Well done to Aidan O'Brien, another brilliant achievement by him. Maxard, the Pretty Polly winner, she's 8 from, we went 10 immediately after the race, but she's now 8-1 from 33 before the race. 14-1, Sea of Faith, Iridessa, and it's 16-1 the rest.
Yeah, that's Sea of Fate. She's a ridiculous price considering she was just 4th in a maiden at Sandown, but I really do like her. Can't wait to see her out again. Jimmy, before we move on to Punchestown, you wanted to talk about Maxa. You were very, very happy with what you saw.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, I haven't really been that impressed by the 3-year-old fillies at all, and when they were juveniles last season, but that's one of the ones that has really caught my eye. I thought she was very impressive. As what she said, she probably didn't beat that much, but she couldn't have done it any easier. Cruised to the front on the bridle and just went away, I mean, in second gear. So there'll be more to come from her. I think she's a definite player for Epsom.
Yeah, okay. William Haggerty could hold the key to the Oaks at the moment. Let's move on to the jumps action then. Punchestown, it seems like such a long time ago now since that festival started. Let's talk about Classical Dream. And Jimmy, I know you wanted to talk about Bouvardere and incorporating him into it. So what did we make of him on the Tuesday? I mean, he looked brilliant again. Brilliant again,
yeah. It was a good race. They went a proper gallop with Felix DJ, and he cruised away from them, won easily. He's definitely now the top novice hurdler over 2 miles anyway, and I think the top novice hurdler around everywhere. He's got to have a major chance in the champion hurdle if that's the route that they decide to take with him next season. I think particularly as on the Friday, Bouvardere won, people saying he was back to his best and everything, but I'm still not sure, to be honest with you. He was beating a bunch of horses who are on the way down, in my opinion. Super Sunday, very consistent, but he's probably past his peak. Apples Jade, very disappointing again. So I think, you're looking at a few older hurdlers whose days are probably past them, apart from obviously the champion hurdle winner, Espoir de l'Aisne. So I think, Classical Dream for the champion hurdle would be the horse I'd be looking at the moment.
Yeah, I think Jimmy's made a very good point there, Watsy, about sort of we need fresh blood in this division now, and it would be good to see Espoir d'Allen back next year. But Classical Dream, I mean, I can't wait to see him over a fence. He looks like he'd love to be jumping fences, but...
hold your horses. We've got to see what he can do in the champion hurdle first.
Yeah. No, I'm all for it. I think fair play for them for giving it a go.
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly the right decision. He looked very good at Cheltenham, very, very good. He's up with the pace throughout, and he's the only one that kind of stayed there and went away from them. That indicated that, he's a pretty special kind of horse, and he did that again at Punchestown. So I can completely see why connections are going that way. And I couldn't agree more with James about Bouvardere's race either. I mean, yeah, he came back to form, but I couldn't have him on my mind next season for another champion hurdle. I mean, he beat horses, as James said, that are just flatlining, really. They run in these grade ones and they turn up and they pick up place money. They nick one every now and then, but they're not really horses you would want to have on your list for next March, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Can we get some prices on the champion hurdle next year, Binners?
Yes, Classical Dream now vies for favouritism with this year's winner, Espoir d'Allen. Maddie Espoir d'Allen's 9-2 favourite, Classical Dream 5. We cut him from 8-1 after his win at Punchestown. Bouvardere, I trimmed him a little bit, 10-1 after his win, even though some of you guys weren't that impressed. And then it's 14-1 bar.
Okay, thanks, Binners. What about the Gold Cup picture? Now, obviously, Ruby Walsh's retirement was the big story coming out of that Punchestown Gold Cup after winning on Kenboy. We've covered that in great detail, so let's talk about the horses. Great ride, Jimmy. Would he be on your radar for the Cheltenham race? It's a different sort of test, isn't it?
It's a different test, but he'd have to be. I mean, he's just got better and better this season. He was very impressive at Leopardstown. Aintree, and now here again. I mean, he was taken on for the lead this time, Kenboy, and that tested his jumping and everything. He was pretty keen, but he still lasted it out well enough against a very tough opponent in Album Photo. Ruby's, I think, had definitely improved his jumping. He was an iffy jumper going into this season, Kenboy. As a novice, you wouldn't really trust him over a fence, but now he seems pretty much rock solid.
I think Ruby.
So I think we can forget what happened in the Gold Cup. I think it was just a bit unfortunate. Yeah. It was just a one-off. He's got to be on your shortlist for Cheltenham. Although we've got some fantastic young novice chasers coming through as well, so he's not going to have it all his own way. Yeah,
we have indeed. I was just going to say, I think Ruby obviously won't be riding him anymore, but he rode him particularly well. I think he seems a very fast horse to me.
Yeah, he does, and I'm kind of not even looking as far ahead as Cheltenham at the moment. If Kenboy makes it over to Kempton on Boxing Day, I think we've got an absolute race to savour. That could be an amazing race if they all make it there. because we've got the likes of Kenboy. I doubt he'd send Albion Photo as well, but you've got Kenboy, you've got the 2 British novice chasers from this year, maybe Santini top of the game. You've got the mare Labago Roy. Didn't say that very well, but Labago Roy.
If you don't worry, you're not the first, you won't be the last.
Yeah, and you've got Altior going in trip. It's got all the ingredients. If the main players make it to Kempton on Boxing Day, we've got an absolute race to savour. And Kenboy, you'd think a 3-mile chase around Kempton would suit him absolutely perfectly. And if you got in a good rhythm around there, Cheltenham would be a different question. 3 miles too. We saw Clanders Oboe last season now win very nicely at Kempton, but then not quite see it out at Cheltenham. Could be a similar case with Kenboy. Not saying he wouldn't stay at Cheltenham, but I'd be much more confident of him winning the King George at Kempton at Christmas than I would be at this stage of him winning the Gold Cup in March.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, just a little niggly concern about him in that sort of last 2, maybe 1 furlong up that hill at Cheltenham. Binner's Albion Photo, he ran really well. Gold Cup winner, of course, at Punchestown, but he wasn't a match for Kenboy. Just give us an update on the Cheltenham betting.
Yeah, once again, Maddie, we can't separate them too much. Kenboy became 4-1 favourite after his win from 8-1, and Albion Photo is next best in at 6-1. Then we go 10-1 top of the game, and Delta Work Santini lost in translation, and it's 14-1 bar.
Yeah, one of the performances of Punchestown for me was undoubtedly Chacun Pour Soi. I'm sure he was for many other people as well. I don't think I've ever heard Willie Mullins talk about a horse the way he spoke about him after he won Watsy. I mean, Champion Chase, he looks like he's a real star.
Yeah, definitely. And, it's one of the few omissions on Willie Mullins' CV, isn't it? He's had a lot of bad luck in that race. And, Duvan was long odds on a few years ago, and something went wrong with him during the race. It just hasn't quite worked out for him. Or for Rich Ritchie, for that matter. And, that was an amazing performance. He kind of crept up on me a little bit because he's been absent for so long. And obviously he came back with a nice win, but this was taken on different kind of horses, Defi Desile, and the like. And there's no reason to suggest that Defi Desile didn't run his race. I thought he was there. He could have won if he was good enough, but he couldn't even get on the quarters of Chacun Pour Soi. It just went away from him again. Defi probably does want that extra half mile these days, so I'm sure you'll see him in the Ryanair next season rather than the Queen Mother. But for your second time over fences, having had so long off, you can't ask for any more than that. His jumping was sound. He found loads. He's got to be a huge player for Cheltenham next season. He really does.
Yeah, he's a bit of a big baby still, isn't he, Jimmy? I know Willie Mullins said to Robbie Power, I want you to go out wide, don't get involved in any skirmishing, don't let him be brought down or anything silly happen. And he just absolutely powered to the front, didn't he?
Yeah. I actually wasn't blown away by the performance. I didn't watch it live. I watched it after people told me what an amazing performance it was, and I wasn't blown away by it. I was impressed. I didn't think the Arco and Duke de Ginevra ran his race. I think he's better than that. And Defi Desile, he did as usual. He's very consistent, but I think it's been proved this season he's not as good at over 2 miles as he is over 2.5. So he wants a bit further than that. You'd be more taken actually by Willie Mullins' comments as what he was saying. When Willie Mullins, talks up a horse like that, you really do have to take notice. So he's clearly very talented, but on that performance, I wouldn't be calling him a Champion Chase winner just yet.
Okay, yeah, I think that's reasonable to be just holding it back a little bit. Binners, what price is he now?
He's 5-1 for the Champion Chase. Maddie, second favourite. Altior heads the market at 7-2. And double figure prices for the rest in that race.
Yeah, it could be an exploitable division, couldn't it, without your stepping up in trip. Elsewhere at Punchestown, under he was magnificent again. We have Manila Indo winning, you know what I mean. Harry bounced back to form in the Stayers Hurdle. Benny de Dieu, Fusil Raffles. Any others we want to mention, Watsy?
Yeah, I thought you've got to give credit to Fusil Raffles, I think. Because he's had kind of an injury-curtailed season. The cut he had at Kempton apparently was quite bad, and obviously that's why he didn't run at Cheltenham or Aintree. And Nicky Henderson was saying, well, he only just made it back in time for Punchestown. He's in against Fakir Dudery, who, isn't a superstar, but is a solid operator at that level, who had experience going into the race as well. So Fusil Raffles had it to do for me heading into that. So the fact that he was able to do it, really, I think that's a real positive for his future. And we were talking about champion hurdle horses for next season, and yeah, I mean he's probably got a bit of a way to go to match the likes of Classical Dream, but he certainly deserves to be given a champion hurdle preparation, and certainly starting the season. And if he can win a trial race, I wouldn't know where they'd send him at this stage. Maybe a fighting fifth somewhere like that, or an international hurdle. He could get into the picture easily, I think.
Yeah, Espoir Dallin proved that the younger sort of guns can do it, although in the past people have thought it to be very difficult. Jimmy, anything else to add from Punchestown? A highlight?
I'd echo what he said about Fillies or Raffles. I think he's an exciting prospect for the future. I like the other big race winner on Saturday too, Benny Dedger. She was impressive 12 months ago. I thought she was impressive again. You could say, well, she's only beaten to Willie Mullen's stablemates, but the fact is both Stormy Island and Good Time Tara have a very good level of form. As proven at Cheltenham, they gave Roxana a real race. Roxana nearly went and won a Grade 1 over 3 miles next time. Benny Dedger, I thought, beat them easily. And the calls should start growing quite loud for her to now step out of Mayor's company and take on the boys, because she's clearly very talented. Yeah,
it'd be good to see that happen next season. She's got sort of similar profile now to Lorena, hasn't she, with how she's been beating Stormy Island, Good Time Tara and those sort of horses. So hopefully she can prove herself. Now, I mentioned earlier the Kentucky Derby. People have been talking about it non-stop. It's been a very controversial decision. Maximum Security was first past the post. He did edge out. People were saying it was for all sorts of reasons. Just coming around the home bend, he impeded War of Will. He was eventually thrown out, and the winner was Country House. Right decision, wrong decision. Nick Watts, what's your take on it?
I didn't see it at the time, but obviously I caught up with all the furore yesterday. Even Donald Trump got involved, didn't he?
He did.
So yeah, he wasn't happy, Donald, with what happened there. And for once, I don't know. I kind of agree with him in a way, but I don't think it's the decision that's the problem. It's the rules. The American rules. They were interpreted correctly as they stand, and so the race was forfeited. But so if you want to change something, you have to go back to the rule makers and go back to your committees and all that, and say, well, is this a fair way for determining horse races? And they were just interpreting the rules correctly, but the rules are probably wrong.
Yeah, it was very sad, I thought, Jimmy. I mean, I just listened to an interview before we came in here with Mark Cassidy, who trained War of Will, and he said, at the end of the day, I'm just happy I've got a horse coming out of this, because it was quite a dangerous incident. The horse could have been brought down, there could have been a mass pile-up and all of that, but Maximum Security, he was the best horse in the race, wasn't he? And I'm not sure Louis Sayers or anyone else could have done anything about his veering, so it just leaves a bit of a bad taste, doesn't it?
Yeah, did it really stop any other horse winning? I mean, I know it was kind of impeding a few others, but you're absolutely right. I mean, he was the best horse in the race. I just thought it was ridiculous. I mean, yeah, what's he saying? You're going by the rules, but the rules are far too harsh. I'm one of the people who does think, in the UK we are a bit soft on interference. I think sometimes we could come down harder in terms of race results, but. No, I thought in this occasion that's way too over the top. He clearly was the best horse in the race and should never have lost it. Yeah,
very, very sad incident, really. But fingers crossed it will be learned from, and hopefully it won't happen again. Just thankfully that everyone came out of that incident okay. As I mentioned previously, Chester is our big festival this week, and we're going to have a look at that just after the break.
Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.
So Chester's May meeting is the big event this week. I'm Maddie Plell in the studio, joined by Nick Watts, James Hill and Paul Binfield as well, just to give it a quick preview. The big race on Wednesday is one of the big races is the Cheshire Oaks, won a couple of years ago by Enable en route to Oaks victory. It looks a very open race this time around, gents. Binners, just take us through the prices first off.
Well, we can't separate Manuela de Vega and Secret Port, Maddie. They're both 11-4 joint favourites, 9-2 Fanny Logan, and it's 14-1 Bar.
Yes, Silver Tanker winner Manuela de Vega, she's unbeaten. Aidan O'Brien's got Secret Thoughts, as Binners mentioned. He's won 5 out of the last 10 renewals, and then John Gosden, as we mentioned, won this race with Enable, has a couple in there as well. Jimmy, what's your thoughts on this race?
Well, there's going to be quite a bit of rain looking at the weather forecast for Wednesday, so I'll be looking for a filly that can handle soft ground. going to take a bit of a chance here, actually, on the Andrew Balding filly, Grace and Danger, who I really liked when she won on her debut at Nottingham. This is a real step up of class, of course, here, but I thought she showed a decent turn of foot there in pretty testing ground. So I would be expecting a big run from her, and I'm hoping she can make the first three.
Yeah, Watsy, I'm not sure there is a superstar in this, but it's open for one to come out and be really impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. James has hit the nail on the head with this. It's one. If anyone's looked ahead to the forecast for Wednesday, it's one of those days where you could get a deluge of rain and it could change things enormously, or, it's a bit hit and miss. So it's not a bad strategy to go for a horse that might enjoy a bit and cut in the ground. I think Manuela de Vega will handle it. For that reason, I'd stick with her. Followed her last season. She won 2. She won the listed race at Pontefract on the last start. Rafe Beckett's got a great way with fillies. He's won the Oaks a couple of times, and he was talking. I was reading back his quotes before I came in. It was quite interesting what he said about her last year. That she was just a frame of a horse, and he said then she's won for a trial for the Oaks next spring. And lo and behold, here she is. She won over a mile last season. I think she'll definitely stay. She's actually a half-sister to the Lincoln winner, Auxerre, who won that race very easily indeed, probably a group horse too. So she comes from a good family, one that should progress and one that I think she'll stay this trip fine. She should get an Oaks trip fine too. Don't think she'll mind cutting the ground. So she's the one for me to maintain her winning sequence.
Yeah, nicely done. The other classic trial on Wednesday is the MBNA Chester Vase Stakes in Group 3. I'm very excited to see Charlie Fellows' King Ottica return here after winning so impressively last time. Binners, presumably he heads the market.
He does indeed, Maddie, yes. That one's an 11-4 favourite. 3-1 Norway for Aidan O'Brien, 7-2 Technicians, 7-1 the Dragonet, 9-1 Arthur Kit for local trainer Tom Dascombe, and it's 10-1 the rest.
Yeah, no Aidan O'Brien hot pot here. Norway, he's a decent horse in his own right, but I think King Ottica, he could just have that bit of star quality about him. What do you reckon?
I completely agree with you. Going from what I said a minute ago, I think this is a race that definitely could change if there's cut in the ground, because then I'd be all over King Ottica, who's won twice out of 3 goes. They've both come on soft ground, including Newbury on his comeback when he's very impressive. The only time he was below par was in the Futurity, which actually has obviously worked out really well, but Charlie Fellows didn't think he was quite ready for that, so I'd draw a line through it. And if there's, good amount of dig in the ground, I would strongly fancy him. If the ground was still riding on top, then I would give Norway a squeak. I know you said he might not be out of the top echelon of Aidan O'Brien's Derby horses, but he still won the Zetland Stakes last season, which is actually quite an important race for Ballydor these days, because Wings of Eagles came from that race to win the Derby, of course. Kew Gardens won it for them, who won the St Leger last season. Norway is a brother to Ruler of the World, who won this race a few years ago himself. And I'd forget his run in France late last season, because he'd had quite a busy time of it and he was probably over the top by then. So if it stayed on top, I'd expect a big run from Norway. They're actually putting first-time cheek pieces on him.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's just races a bit lazily.
Similar to his Ruler of the World in a lot of the way.
Yeah, very much so. And I'd fancy him much more for a Ledger, even at this stage, than I would a Derby, because I think Aidan's probably got a few better than him at mile and 4. But yeah, so if it was on top, then I'd give Norway a definite squeak, but my confidence in King Ottica would increase with every drop of rain. So if it's a wet Wednesday at Chester, then I think look no further for your winner.
Okay, Jimmy, and what about Technician? He brings a different strand of form into this, the Sandown Classic trial behind Bangkok. He was unlucky there, went into a lot of people's notebooks.
Yeah, I think Bangkok was definitely the best horse that day. But yeah, no, Technician's interesting here. The only thing I'd say about King Ottica, he might well be going for the D Stakes, particularly with this rain forecast.
Okay.
So if he was running, I'd be interested in him. If he doesn't run, the horse he finished second, Dashing Willoughby, could be one to side
with. He looks a St Leger type to me.
Well, yeah, and you can get St Leger types winning this, definitely, because 1 mile, 4.5 furlongs for 3-year-olds at this stage of the season is quite far. With the forecast rain, he'll like that. You wouldn't have enough tow for Epsom, so I should think they'll be focusing on this. And yeah, if King Ottica ran, you could argue it'd be hard to turn the form around, but if he doesn't, he's a good backup.
Yeah, I like that. We'll move on to Thursday in the D Stakes, the listed race, another trial that we need to turn our attentions to. Binners Aidan O'Brien's got any number of horses in here. Just roll us through the betting.
He has, yeah, and one of those, Anthony Van Dyke, rated 118, Maddie. He heads the market. And then it's 4-1 Circus Maximus, again Aidan O'Brien, 5 Almania, 6-1 Fox Chairman, 7 Senza Limity, and it's 10-1 Bar.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many are going to run. None of us know that yet. But, guys, I sort of looked at this race and thought, I'm just going to ignore all of Aidan O'Brien's horses. I thought Fox Chairman was really interesting if he ran. And I don't know, there's something about Aidan O'Brien chucking a lot of horses into a race that, to me, suggests he doesn't have a real superstar or he doesn't know which one's best. Is that fair?
He always has a lot of entries for these group races. So, I mean, they'll probably be whittled down a bit on the day. Circus Maximus, his form has been seriously boosted, hasn't it? With Magna Grecia's victory.
He has, yeah.
He was behind him a Persian King at Newmarket, and also behind Magna Grecia in the Vertemps Futurity at Doncaster. So I think he'll go well. I think he's got a bit of winning form on softer ground too. So he would be one of the Aidan O'Brien horses.
Okay, I was probably being a bit harsh there, saying I'd chuck out all of Aidan O'Brien's. One of them's probably going to win. But from a betting perspective, I have no idea which one it is. Do you, Nick Watts?
I imagine he's going to run Anthony Van Dyke. Again, it's quite a long week in terms of trials. I think we've got Lingfield Derby trial on Saturday, and then we've got the Derrinstown on Sunday. Then we've got the Dante next week. So there's still loads and loads of trials to come. He's got so many horses to fit in. I thought we were going to see Japan this week, but it doesn't look as though we are. Exactly. I thought over the weekend he said he would be running at Chester, but I haven't seen him amongst the entries. So
maybe something amiss with him.
Yeah, possibly. Or maybe, like he's just got so many to try and fit in. Maybe he's going to stay at home and run in the Derrinstown, although, Broome might run in that. And he might save it for the Dante. We
can tie ourselves in knots.
Yeah, I know. I did think what you said about Fox Chairman earlier on was interesting. Yeah, he did catch my eye as well. Good winner at Newbury last time out. Good maiden winner.
Interesting. Another one, Private Secretary. I thought he was impressive at Sandown. Big step up, but similar horses in that they're on the up.
Yeah, no, definitely. Anthony Van Dyke is obviously the form. I think the form horse, but he did have quite a few runs as a 2-year-old. Just wouldn't be certain how he'd progress this year or where he kind of fits into the O'Brien regime.
Do you think he'd stay this far?
He looked like he needed a trip as a juvenile, didn't he? I think.
He never travelled that well, didn't he? He always kept on quite strongly.
Yeah, but it's some short prices on the Thursday for Aidan, because I'm sure we'll go on to talk about the Ormond in a minute, where Kew Gardens will probably make his comeback, and I think he'll be a very short price for that. So
yeah, we will talk about that now. Binners, do you have any betting on the Ormond Stakes?
Yeah, we certainly do, Maddie. 11-10 Kew Gardens, so Nick just mentioned, then it's 4-1 Muta Sadir, 5-1 Mirando, 6-1 Cypress Creek and Magic Circle for Ian Williams, and it's 14-1 Bar.
Yeah, you mentioned Magic Circle there. The highlight of this whole meeting is the Chester Cup on Friday. He won it last year. Kew Gardens, though, as you said, he was a really good horse last year, winning 2 Group 1s in the end, and he should make into a really nice stay of his season. Yeah,
definitely, and he's an understandable favourite. Again, it's a point I made earlier about Aidan O'Brien horses. They've all got long seasons ahead of them, so whether he'll be absolutely tuned up for this, you wouldn't be totally sure. If Magic Circle took his chance, I think him in against Kew Gardens might be quite interesting, because the way, obviously he won the Chester Cup last season, as you mentioned, big handicap, but the way he won that and the way he won at Sandown afterwards.
Yeah, easy to forget how impressive he was.
Exactly. He is very much up to this class, this standard. So I wouldn't say it's a gimme for Kew Gardens. He could run a perfectly satisfactory race with other races to come further down the line. But Magic Circle, we know he's good round Chester. So I wouldn't said that. I wouldn't want to be taking short prices on Kew Gardens first time out.
Yeah, I must admit, I forgot he was sort of a Melbourne Cup favourite, wasn't he, at one stage? He was very strongly fancied for that. Jimmy, Kew Gardens, thoughts on him? Do you think he could potentially pose a threat to Stradivarius later on in the year?
Oh yeah, no, definitely could do that. He could get beaten here, though. I agree with Watsy. If Magic Circle takes his chance, he's jocked up in this race anyway. Then you'd have to be interested.
Oh, and Kukash loves the meetings, so.
Yeah, I mean, he's got so much going for him. Good record at the track, good record fresh, will love the ground, stays well. He's got lots going for him. I think, even if it was, less than 8 runners, he only went first 2, I think he'd be a good each way bet at 6-1. So he'd be my selection.
Yeah, very interesting that. As I mentioned on Friday, it is the Chester Cup, but prior to that is the Huxley Stakes, a Group 2 over a mile 2.5 furlongs. Now this has a very open look to it as well. We could well see, in an interesting twist of fate, Matterhorn, who won on all-weather finals day. I'm not sure if he is going to take his chance, but a really talented horse nonetheless. There's no betting for this, but any thoughts from you?
I quite like a horse called Chief Ironside, Maddie. William Jarvis. This horse won his maiden at Chester last year very impressively. I love a bit of course and distance form on the Rudy, and this fellow's been knocking on the door in a couple of Group 3s. Maybe you can set it up at this level as well.
Okay, thanks for that. Been as Forest Ranger, Adabe, Mustachery, some other of the names engaged here. Jimmy, I'll go to you first. If I sort of had a gun to your head, not that I ever would, who would you pick?
Well, if this rain comes, there really isn't that many I'd fancy at all. I suppose Adabe on his best form when he won the Lincoln first time out last season would have a chance. So we know he goes well fresh. This is a very different track though. Just if he comes over, I could take a chance here. And he'd probably be a big price on Success Days, who I thought actually ran a lot better than his finishing position suggested when he returned at Leopardstown last time. He does tend to have a very good record at this time of year. I know he's
cut in the ground, doesn't he?
Yeah, I know he's 7, but I mean he went over to York, I think, last season or the season before that, and won when he wasn't really that well fancied. He's generally quite consistent, front runner, like soft ground. I mean, this could be the right sort of race for him.
Okay, what's anything to add?
I think it's a fascinating race if Matterhorn turns up.
It's a bizarre sort of race to go for, isn't it, after what he did at Lingfield?
Well, I mean, he was so impressive at Lingfield. I mean, we all thought Wissahickon only had to turn up to win, and he absolutely blew him apart. The big unknown here is obviously turf. He's only run once on turf in his life. Most of his, or nearly all of his racing has been done on all weather. I think he ran on his debut at Pontefract, he ran on turf. We haven't seen him back on it since then. He's obviously been a massive improver in the meantime. It will be really, really interesting to see how he fares back on grass again. And in a good race as well. James has mentioned a couple of dangers there. Adabe would be one that I'd be interested in for the reasons that he gave, that he goes well fresh, won first time out last season, followed up, won the Bet 365 mile, didn't he? So he's up to this standard as well. So I think he's got plenty going for him. But just a fascinating race to watch, and I'll be intrigued to see if Matterhorn can do it on the turf.
Yes, so will I. Let's move on to the big one then. It is at 3:35 on Friday. It's the Sports Pesa Chester Cup Handicap over 2 miles, 2 furlongs and half a furlong. Now, Austrian School, he's been popular for this since he won the Queen's Cup at Musselburgh. An impressive winner there, Binners. Has he been popular?
He has, yeah. He jumped to the head of the market that day, Maddie. Very impressive, wasn't he? 5-1 favourite, 7-1 Low Sun, 8-1 Cleonte and Shabib. And Who Dares wins for Alan King, and it's 10-1 the rest.
Yeah, I thought Shabib was interesting in there. It was Kukash, it's Ian Williams. I think Jim Crowley might be jocked up. You know that Marwan's going to want another big winner in the Chester Cup. But let's talk about Austrian School to start off with. You couldn't help but be impressed when he won last time.
Yeah, I thought he won fantastically well. I think this is a group horse. I don't think he'd be in handicaps for too much longer. I mean, the thing with the Chester Cup is we don't know the draw at this stage, and that can scupper you. If he gets drawn in the car park, then it does make life very difficult. But if he gets a decent draw on somewhere near the rail in the lowest 7 or 8 berths, then I think you'll take an awful lot of beating. It sounds like after timing, I wasn't surprised. I didn't even bet him, but I wasn't surprised to see him do what he did last time, because he showed so much promise last season. And
It's a bit frustrating though, wasn't he? Lots of seconds to his name.
Yeah, I think maybe he just took a bit of time. Maybe he's just a bit weak last season, and the break over the winter has done him good, and he's come back a bigger and stronger horse. And he's funnily enough, he's a half brother to Tiger Roll.
I was just about to mention that.
Yeah, he is. He's out of the same dam, Swiss Roll, and so different kettle of fish, of course, but you'd expect him to go on and have some kind of longevity to his career at least. And I just thought everything was in his favour at Musselburgh for a big run. He had those good runs in the bank from last season. He was going there fresh, back. He was bigger, stronger horse. He looked capable at times last season of putting in some big performances. Didn't quite see it out, but he did that day. There was kind of an end product to the way he went through the race. And I just think if he just gets that good draw, which obviously we don't know at the moment, then he'll be up with the pace, out of trouble. And if he finds anything like what he did at Musselburgh in the Queen's Cup, I think he'll take a huge amount of beating.
Yeah, Jimmy, who's your Chester Cup fancy? It's always a tough race to fathom, but maybe not so this year if you're an Austrian school fan.
Well, I am a fan, but this is a stronger, more competitive race than the one he won at Musselburgh. He did win it very impressively and just a £3 penalty. He's rightly favourite, but conditions will be, I think, quite a bit different. Particularly, it's not just the forecast rain on Wednesday. We're meant to be getting a bit of rain after that. So the ground will be softish, and in those conditions, I, being a jumps fan, always look for a few jumpers to side with.
It's a good method, isn't it? I mean, Nicky Henderson, he's done well in this race before. I think Willie Mullins always worth a good look if he sends a couple over. Yeah,
well, his Whiskey Sour is one of mine I'm interested in. He was fourth in the county hurdle, staying on, sixth in the Ebor. He's a pound lower now. This could be exactly the sort of race for him. I mean, softish ground would be no problem for Whiskey Sour. So I like his chance. And the other one I like, the horse who was third in last year's race, Who Dares Wins, who was staying on strongly to finish third last season. He comes into the race a lot fresher. I mean, he's didn't run after last year's race until last month at Newbury, when he stuck on well to finish third. So he comes into this race a lot fresher, and I think the softer ground will make it more of a stamina test, and that will suit him.
Okay, so one sort of for Austrian school, one maybe against. Any other fancies from Chester this week? There could be some really interesting horses racing. We've got a lot of the 2-year-olds. The Lily Agnes is always a good contest. We know draw is crucial. Did you have a quick look at anything, Watsy?
Yeah, I did. I had one for the Lily Agnes, which I quite like. Great Dame, David O'Meara's horse. I think she's drawn 3, so that's obviously a big help. One at Ripon last time, gets £5 off the boys. I think she's quite interesting in the first race. On the Wednesday, John Gosden's got a handicapper on the Thursday called Gantier, who's a Frankel horse, been doing a lot of running on the all-weather, one at Newcastle last time out. I think quirky track like Chester might just suit him. He's shown a bit of temperament in the past and maybe not completely straightforward. So I think this kind of unique test will turn him on, and he'll quite like that. So those would be my 2.
Yeah, before we get to Jimmy, I'm going to jump in there and say I've got a few top breeds I think will be interesting. He runs on Wednesday for Richard Hughes, was impressive winner at Newmarket last time. He's drawn 1, I think. He's bound to be favourite, but I'm really excited to see him. And Ed Walker in our Monday jury, he had an impressive maiden winner at this track in Caradoc a couple of years ago. Don't think he took the jockey a long time to pull him up this Caradoc, and if he reappears on the card somewhere, he's surely worth a second look. Jimmy, I'm shooting over to you now.
Well, I'm just going to wait, I think, until I see the draw for the races. I mean, one thing I would say, Tom Dascombe's yard's in pretty good form at the moment, and he has a good record at Chester, in particular at this meeting. So I'd keep an eye on any of his horses. Ian Williams as well in the staying races, he always does well. But yeah, I think I'll just wait until I see the draw. It's so vital at Chester, isn't it?
You're a far more wise man than me and Watsy. On to the midweek racing then. We've mentioned Chester. On Wednesday we also have Southwell, Kelso, Newton Abbot, Fontwell, Gorham Park. Thursday is Chelmsford, Huntingdon, Worcester, Wincanton, Tipperary. Friday, Ascot, Nottingham, Ripon, Wolverhampton, Market Rasen, Cork and Downpatrick. Do we have any fancies elsewhere this week? Watsy, I'll get you first.
Well, I'm going to be back in a wee dram. Alan King's horse at Ascot on Friday if it goes in a 4:20. Won on his handicap debut at Newmarket last time out, quite impressively, I thought. And I think there's more to come from him off his handicap mark. And just one, I've had an investment this week which is going to take years to accrue or not accrue, depending on what happens. But I've really got stuck into Richard Johnson beating AP McCoy's record. I think he's going to do it.
Okay,
I think barring injuries, Sky Bet are offering 6-1 last week. Obviously, it was around Sandown when the titles were decided and gongs given out and all that, and so they offered 6-1 on him beating McCoy's record. I just think he's going to do it because, I'm touching a lot of wood here, but he seems to be remarkable in terms of steering clear of difficult or bad injuries that keep him out of the game for a long time. His hunger still seems to be there. He's still got his backers, he's not just Philip Hobbs, he's Gordon Elliott in the summer as well. He still seems as keen as ever to go to places like Perth and Newton Abbot. Anywhere there's a chance of a winner, he will go. And he's about 700, 750 adrift now, which sounds a lot, but if he keeps going on at his rate at the moment, then Harry Skelton is going to keep him honest as well. So he's going to be needing those winners to keep up his momentum, keep up his title hopes. And I just think he got so fed up of being second to AP McCoy for so many years that it would give him a huge amount of pleasure to set the total, which I think would prove pretty much impossible to overpass.
Jimmy, what's your big fancy this week?
He's not a big fancy. That's definitely not.
A fancy.
I was just looking for something for this week on my tracker. There's a horse called Big Picture, who's going to be likely running in the 355 at Market Racing on Friday. That's where he's been jocked up. Good winner at Foss Lass at the start of the year. But he's been a bit disappointing since. However, if he does bounce back to form, I think he's well treated of being only about £5 higher mark. So if he does run, he'll be a decent price, and he'll have a few of my shekels on. And
Binners, finally over to you.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get on the Curracundras gallops every morning at Punchestown. I managed to make it despite the late finishes. And one that was well on the gallops was Ham Luang. He's entered in the 525 at Gorham Park on Wednesday in a 7 furlong maiden. He finished mid-division on his maiden debut at Naas. I'm not sure whether he'll win this time, but he might get a place. But he's a lovely horse for the future, and he definitely will be winning.
Brilliant. Some fantastic info there from Binners. He's been on Brendan Duke's gallops. And now let's get your midweek naps.
This will not be beaten.
James Hill, you're a super sub. You've come in. Who's your midweek nap?
Well, providing the field's not too small, I'd be very disappointed if Magic Circle finished out the first two in the Ormond Stakes. So 3:35 Chester on Thursday, Magic Circle.
Thank you. What's it?
4:35 Chester on Thursday. I'm going to go with John Gosden's Frankel horse Gantier, who won at Newcastle last time out, and I just think Chester is going to suit him.
Okay, fabulous. And Binners finally.
Well, I'm going to go for a horse in the Norfolk National at Fakenham, Maddie, on Tuesday at 3:45, called 50 Shades of Christian Williams. He won at Warwick last month when stepped up to this 3 mile, 5 furlong trip, and I think there's quite a bit more in this horse's locker.
Thanks very much for that, Binners. Best of luck if you're looking at Chester this week. Hopefully you can find the winner of the Chester Cup. That's all we've got time for today. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe wherever you are listening to us from. Make sure to join us on Friday when we'll be back with the Tipping Postcast. But until then, we'll see you soon.
Success ain't earned, it's bought. That's why at Paddy Power, we paid the big bucks for the best tech nerds in the world to develop our new, fastest ever app. Download the new app from the App Store or Play Store now. 18+, begambleaware.org.